Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you pre-Thanksgiving. And I have my interviewee for the month. This is the month of November, but you know what? It's never too old of the year, the end of the year, to talk about relationships, especially this time when people are thinking about holidays, right? And how holidays affect them in whether they're single, mostly single, right? Like, oh my gosh, I'm single for the holidays, right? I always tell people it's just a day. It's okay. You're gonna make it, right? And even those of you that who are married, transitioning, whatever your status is, I follow Rex Howard Jr. On Instagram. He's awesome. Has awesome quotes. His Instagram page is I am Rex. Right? Is that right?
Yeah, I am Rex Howard Jr.
Yes, I am Rex Howard Jr. So make sure you guys follow him. We'll say that again at the end of the interview. But thank you for being on the show. How are you today?
Man, I am blessed, and I want to say thank you for even having me, reaching out to me. It's really
Yes,
nice.
yes. I saw some quotes that I resonated with, and I was like, I have to requote them, retweet them, whatever it is, right? That we
Okay.
do in today's social media world because I thought they were so awesome. And then when I got to see who it was, I'm like, oh my gosh, you look so young. Okay, so where did you get all this relationship wisdom from?
Life experiences, exposure, family, books, and my own personal relationships. But I am 27 though.
Yes, 27. Okay, that's still young to me. You're a little younger than me, but I always feel like wisdom doesn't come with age, it comes with knowledge and experience. So I am one of those that
Absolutely.
are really love it. I have so many relationship questions. I had some of my friends send me relationship questions.
Okay.
So, so all these are not mine, but I got, so many things I want to talk about when it comes to relationships and what people are dealing with in relationships and what they struggle with. Just tell us a little bit about yourself before I get into hitting you with all those questions.
Okay, so I am Rex Howard Jr., your relationship coach. I help people learn how to show up for themselves so they can show up in relationships. Because I do believe that, I mean, in order to have the capacity to show up for others, you got to have the space to show up for yourself first. So that's what I help people do. Well, when it comes to communication, when it comes to finding your purpose, when it comes to just reconnecting with God. Not to say I'm the most spiritual person in the world,
No.
but I do like to help direct people in those areas as well. And then just help people understand who they need to be with and who they don't need to be with. I don't tell them not to break up with certain people, but at the same time, I will give my best advice and give them my experiences on relationships so they can prevent themselves from making mistakes that I made.
Oh man, I love that. I think that's so important. There's a coach for almost everything today, and relationships are probably the key thing that really will propel us forward or ruin our lives, literally,
Absolutely.
right? And
Absolutely.
choosing is not only just we always think about the romantic relationships, but even friendships, right? And people that we choose to have in our circle makes such a big difference. It's made a huge difference in my life. So I love that they're now having coaches that deal with these relationship issues. I follow a lot of people online like Love Dorsey. She could be a little raw, but she's real as it
Yeah.
comes. And other people that I think are just great relationship coaches. There's a lady on my Facebook, Lauren. She does great relationship advice. So I wanted to
Okay.
ask you questions as a male. Male, we see like the Stephen Speaks, right? And Derek Jackson before he got in all that trouble.
Right.
Um,
Right.
we often, I think the question is that we often think about in today's world when it comes to social media as what's real and versus what's fantasy. And I think a lot of that have been convoluted. It's been, intertwined in a way that's, give people a false illusion of what a relationship should be. How do
Right.
you think social media affects relationships if it does?
Man, it affects it 100% by celebrities posting their
Mhm.
relationships, and everybody want to gravitate towards that, to everybody posting their best pictures of their best moments or
Yeah.
their best vacations. And it's having people that really haven't necessarily made it to where they want to make it in relationships feel like
Mhm.
they're feel the need of FOMO, like fear missing out, like they're missing out on something, they're missing out on vacations, they're missing out on the right partner. And I think it messes a lot of people up because they don't do the work to become the person that needs to be in a
Mhm.
relationship. And I think that's where social media comes into play because it makes you want to have something before you're ready for it.
Ah, that's really good. I agree with that. I think I felt victim to that, right? As a single woman, at one point was really like heavy on dating websites and then was like, no, I just need to purge myself. I realized I was attracting the same kind of people, and
Absolutely.
I was like, I need to do some work within me.
Absolutely.
Something is broken here. And I feel like a lot of times people get into relationships and they have these needs and desires, but they don't do the introspective work. How important is working with yourself before even really getting into a relationship?
I think it's absolutely mandatory. One of the most important things you can give and do for yourself, because a lot of times we hop in relationships for somebody to make us happy, for
Yeah.
somebody to fill our needs. And I say, until you're able to give yourself what you're asking for, you shouldn't be asking for it. And
Mhm.
that's where a lot of people go wrong. If you're not happy by yourself, you're not going to be happy in a relationship. Nobody, no man, no woman, no whatever you may identify as, will be able to make you happy because you aren't able to give it to yourself. And even if they do, it's only going to be temporary because you're always going to be needing something different. You're always going to be needing something more. It's almost
Mhm.
like a, it's almost like a person that's addicted to certain things. They need more and more as they go. So that is so important to work on yourself. How you feel
Y-
about it?
Yeah, you know what? I do. I feel like, I really, to tell you the truth, I didn't, I thought I had arrived, to be honest. It was at one point I was cocky about myself. I'm like, I got my life together. I'm a self-made woman. I'm independent. Any man that gets me is just getting the world. But then when
Right.
I saw what I was attracting, I realized, wait a minute, it's something in me that's attracting this type of guy or these situations. So then I took the step back. Like, I'm really doing like a soul fast this holiday, and
Okay.
I'm taking a step back to really list those things that I really want. Because sometimes we say we want things, but when we get them, they're not really what we want. I'll give you a perfect example. When I was married, I was married to a man who was constantly cheating, right?
Right.
And shout out to him. We're friends, so no drama there. But when I was married, he was constantly cheating. So when I got out of that relationship, I was just like, God, I just want somebody who's faithful. I just want
Yeah.
somebody who's going to be faithful to me and everything. So what did God give me? He gave me a man who was faithful, and I was in a relationship with him for 2 years. But guess what? He was not what I needed, really. He was not just what I
Wow.
wanted. So I realized I was shooting so low, right? I was like, God, I need somebody who's faithful, but really, I needed somebody who's also faithful, who also loved my children, who was intellectual, who could also, have a little street sense. So I needed more than just one thing. Sometimes we get out these relationships and we think we need something, but it's not really what we need. It's just something we weren't getting in the last relationship. So
Right.
yeah, I think that could be a trick back. Really exploring who you are and what your needs are and desires are, right? And what God
Yeah.
has for you. So we'll get to the
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because if you don't do that, then you won't know what to tell a person. So if you're safe, you're dating, and a person asks you, "What do you want?"
mm-hmm.
Or like, "What would you want for a relationship? What went wrong in your last relationship?" If you haven't sat down and reflected on your last relationship and really thought about what went wrong on your end and on their end, what you need from your partner, what you want from your partner, and then also what you're willing to give, because I think everything is very transactional. Then
Yes.
you won't be able to engage in that conversation. So you said that the first person betrayed, just stepped out, and then the other person was faithful, but that's not what you needed. And that confused me a little bit.
No, no, no,
Uh,
no. Okay, let me just clarify that. I like the fact that he was faithful. That was
okay,
good. But there were other areas that I needed that he didn't have
okay,
in the relationship. So I think that's why I'm saying you have to be very specific on your list. You know what I'm saying? It's not just that one thing. Because my ex-husband cheated on me, I felt like I need somebody who's faithful, right? And so
right,
that's what God sent me, somebody who's faithful, right?
right,
And then I realized he's faithful, but he's not social. He doesn't like to go anywhere. He doesn't like to do anything. He just likes to stay home. That
yeah,
doesn't fit my personality.
right,
So it wasn't a fit. Not saying that somebody has to be exactly like me, but we just weren't a fit, right? Like what I thought. So I learned that I needed to take time out to really figure out what my needs were, right? What my
right.
desires were. So yeah.
Okay, I like
Yes,
that.
clarifying that. Yes. Yes, I
That
still want faithful. Yes.
yes,
I wanted to ask you because there are so many different types of relationships these days. Now, I'm a Christian, so let me just put that out there. And of course, I have my Christian beliefs, but there are many people who follow different religions and believe different things. And you're seeing the rise of poly relationships, right? Relationships that are open. What do you feel about that? I mean, our society is going in a totally different direction of the traditional relationship model that we kind of, that was kind of you would never find in the 50s or 60s.
absolutely. So, mind you, I am Christian as well. So, but I don't judge. I don't
Hmm.
judge at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
But ultimately, what I feel is every relationship, no matter if it's monogamous or polygamous, it's going to need all the same principles. You're going to need trust, respect,
Mhm.
communication, empathy, love. So, and communication, even in when you're adding multiple people, has to be even more on point because
Mhm.
now you have to be able to communicate with multiple people. You have to be on the same page. You have to be able to be transparent. A lot of times in monogamous relationships, if a person steps out or wants to open things up, they're not transparent about it. They don't know how to
Mhm.
communicate. And then when they do communicate, they may say it in the wrong way to make their partner feel a type of way about it. So ultimately what my thing is I don't judge. I don't feel a type of way about people that like to open up their
Yeah.
relationships. As long as they like what they're doing, they agree what they're doing, is very consensual, and they feel
Very
happy.
consensual is a good point. Because I feel like some women have gotten forced into that, right?
Absolutely.
And or men, right? We can't just say it's just women have been forced into it and they've regretted it later on.
Out of
Like
fear.
doing it does not necessarily save the relationship.
At all. At all. And I was listening to a podcast actually, and it was Kevin Hart was on like
Hmm.
a pivot podcast, and they asked him about like open relationships, and he told a story about one of his friends.
Hmm.
His One of his guy friends, he wanted to open his relationship up with his wife, and he told his wife, "Hey, let's go to the swingers party."
Hmm.
Right. So they went to the swingers party, and the husband, he was like, "Okay, I want to have sex with this young lady, and I'll be okay with you having sex with her husband." But his ultimate goal was to have sex with the other lady. So he
Yeah.
did what he wanted to do, and then as soon as he saw his wife having sex with the husband, they got divorced. It's something that he couldn't handle. He could not handle it. So that's on the extreme level. But at the same time, a lot of us want things because it sounds cute. We want to have an extra partner
Hmm.
for our benefit. But once we actually see our person with somebody else, that may spark something in us that we may
Hmm.
not be able to ever forget. And you have to be ready for that type of lifestyle. Not everybody's ready for that type of lifestyle.
So I'm totally never gonna be ready for that like that. Okay. I don't even share my food. Forget sharing a man. All right.
I
But
feel
yes,
that.
more power to you. You know what I'm saying? I don't judge either. I love that though. I agree. Yeah, so I want to talk about too. This is a special time, end of the year. A lot of us single women, single men are judging ourselves like we're not in relationships again this year, right? I told God last year I'm gonna be in a relationship next Christmas.
Right.
And here I am, Christmas coming up, single again. And I think I used to feel like, like a little shame by it, like what's wrong with me? I'm not good enough. But now I feel like, sometimes the biggest box has to get delays, right? A delay is sometimes
Absolutely.
a good thing. How do you counsel people that may be feeling some type of way, like they missed their time, they missed their man, they missed their woman, they missed their period, like they feel like this burden to be in a relationship, especially during the holidays.
I tell people all the time, don't allow for your loneliness to make you make decisions that you'll later regret. Right.
Hmm.
Of course, you want to be in the matching pajamas. You want to be having the coffee and the making the
Yeah.
cookies, which with the person and with your partner. And you don't really want to always be with family, right?
Yes.
Especially as you get older, because not everybody, we all want to start our own traditions.
Hmm.
So I tell people just wait your turn, like really wait your turn, because once again, you don't want to jump in something or rush something because you're just lonely in the moment.
Hmm.
And and just because you may have somebody for this Christmas or you may not have somebody for this Christmas may not mean that you won't have somebody for next Christmas. And then again, you don't want to have a person that you rushed into a relationship with this Christmas that you don't end up with next Christmas.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So you want something that lasts, and like you said, the biggest gifts always sometimes come delayed, and delayed doesn't mean denied.
I love
So
that. Yes.
that's
Totally.
what I tell people: be patient. If you're lonely, spend time with your family, spend
Mhm.
time with your friends. Really, really put your gift, not your gift, but your ideal partner on your wish list, and then
Mhm.
and also write down the things that you need to become and things that you need to do in order to become the best partner as well. So when that
Mhm.
partner is gifted to you and you do have the opportunity to be in that relationship, you'll have everything you need to sustain that relationship.
I love that. I love that answer. I love to, we often hear that in the, religious world, delayed doesn't mean denied. And I agree. Like, it doesn't mean God denied you. Matter of fact, sometimes the wait is beneficial for your own self mental health, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, many I equate it with many times that, let's say I was running late for something, and I'm all mad about guilty about running late, and then I find out that there's an accident, and if I would have been 5 minutes earlier, I might have been caught up in that accident, right? And
Yeah.
so I kind of equate that with waiting your time and your right person, and that's so crazy. I want to get into, how do you know someone is the right person? I think that's the big question. How do you
I
know
think it
someone is the wrong person?
Oh, that's okay. Loaded question.
Yes.
Okay. You know when somebody's wrong person when you have to question everything, when there's an unsettling feeling, like when you feel convicted by the Holy Spirit, when there's
Mhm.
constant red flags always there, when trust isn't there or respect isn't there, right? So you know they say men need respect, women need will love, right? So if the
Yeah.
love or respect isn't there, if the communication is always going back and forth, and you can never be on one accord,
Yeah.
if there's so many things about that person that you just hate and
Yes.
or dislike, but you stick with them because of time and because of energy or because the sex is good or because you like the way they look,
Mhm.
and you find yourself putting up with certain things, then that's how you know you're absolutely with the wrong person. Um, but when you're with the right person, it's a different kind of feeling. It feels safe, right?
Yeah.
You feel like you can trust that person. You feel very committed to that person. In the midst of adversity or the midst of conflict, you don't feel the need to think about, oh, you know what, somebody else can do this better, or you
Mm,
know what, um, I need to step outside the relationship. You don't feel the need to do that. You want to commit to a relationship. You want to turn towards your partner. And then like the as far as the physical aspect of things are there, just the feelings are there. The person is willing to learn. You're willing to learn from that person, and you're willing to take their advice. Right. A lot of
mhm.
times men don't like to take the influence from a woman, but if you find yourself taking your woman's influence, I think you know you're exactly where you're supposed to be at.
I love that. I think it's the opposite. I think it's the saying the truth for a woman, because a lot of times women in my position that have that independent, have their own money, don't really need anything from a man, are often labeled with being too independent, not willing to submit. That little key word that everybody that women seem to hate. I don't hate. I don't hate submission. I think it's the man. Really, I feel like if I find the man that I respect, that I honor, and that I know honors me, and it honors God first, right? I'm willing to submit, hands down,
Mm,
right? Um,
I listen, when you're done with that, I want to touch on
no,
submission.
please go ahead, jump in.
Okay. So I've been doing a lot of studying on submission and I've seen a
Mhm.
lot of videos on submission. Everybody talks about this, that, and the third, right? But when I went and took a look at the Bible, right? And there's a game plan, there's a blueprint already laid out.
Yes, yes.
It's already laid out. So I'm gonna take a few moments just to say what it would take for a man to get his wife to submit to him. And I say wife because God doesn't acknowledge boyfriend and girlfriends
Oh, I love that.
by any means. So now I'm not going to specifically quote Bible verses because I don't have them memorized off the top of my
Sure,
head.
sure.
But the Bible says for women to submit to their one husband. So
Hmm.
first, men have to acknowledge the fact that they need to become a husband first. They need to make them wife first before that can even become a thing. Number two, God says you must love your wife like Christ loved the church, which means He gave His life for it. So that's an agape love. That's a love that's unconditional, love that happens on good days and love that happens on bad days, right? And
Hmm.
that's just something that she's going to need. Number three, you have to become a man that initiates, not only initiating like financially, but spiritually. Being
Hmm.
able to take your wife to church, being able to pray over your family, being able to just be led by God, right? Of course, you both are being led by God, but you are below Him, and then the wife follows behind. So you initiate romantically, right? There's going to be busy times. Your schedule's going to be busy. You're going to have kids. You're going to have different work schedules. You're going to be tired, but romantically, you have to be the initiator. And then also, when it comes to communication, never allow yourself to go to bed or not allow you and your wife to go to bed angry, right? You always
Hmm.
want to make sure that's good to go. And then to the next portion, number four, God says that you must treat her body like you treat your own, right? So anything you do for your body, you feed it, you pour into it, you nurture it, you make sure you have everything you need. So God is saying you need to make sure that she has everything she needs to fully flourish under Him. That's something that truly happens when it comes to submission. And then you think about what submission isn't. Submission isn't servitude. It isn't domineering. It doesn't mean
No.
that this is your slave. It doesn't mean that she can't initiate. It doesn't mean that she doesn't have a say so at all. But what it does mean is she's just submitting to the leadership, right?
Yeah.
Of of her husband and affirming when he's doing good, because at the end of the day, God said if he's not leading you in the right way, then he has to take it up with him.
Mhm.
And if
Mhm.
she's not, submitting to him in the right way, then she has to take it up with God as well. So when it comes to submission, there's a major responsibility that comes with it. And everybody talks about submission in the context of sex. But not many people talk about what the responsibility is that, actually has that God has for submission. So I just wanted to add that in there.
Oh, I love that. That was a great breakdown. I often think about submission about the way that I submit myself to God, right? Or that a man submits himself to God, right?
Yeah,
When we submit ourselves, we still have free will, right? And so even though we're submitting ourselves to God, we make mistakes, right? Sometimes we choose to do
absolutely.
things differently. He doesn't beat us and say, get back here and do what I say. You know what I'm saying? That's not the God we serve, right? So,
Absolutely.
he allows us to go through our paths to make decisions, and then he tries to guide us. And if we communicate with him, he'll try to speak back to us and tell us, hey, this wasn't right, this is wrong, take this path. So I think that I think that's where the relationship with God is so impertinent to our relationship with other people, right? I'm always, my first thing when I try to get with a guy now is, how's your relationship with God?
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
and I want to go into that because I think that people don't see the correlation. But the older I get, the more mature I get, the more knowledge I have. I realize that there may be some things that I can't get that man to understand, to submit to agree with me on. But I know if he has a relationship with God, I can go to God about that man and he will be able to hear from God. But if there's no
Absolutely.
relationship there, then who is he submitted to for me to be
E-
submitted to him? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's the pastor said this not too long ago. He said, if a man is submitting to God and been led by God, then he will be convicted by the Holy Spirit anytime he's going off straight. But
Yes.
if a man isn't being led or and submitted to God, then he has nothing to convict him, right? And then also when it comes to a man having relationships with God, then God's going to also give him the resources and the family and the friendships that he needs to have in order to maintain healthy relationships. So even if you can't get him to do it, maybe he got to put some positive men in his life that's going to push him in that direction, or that's going to tell him, hey man, you need to tighten up in this area because this is what your wife needs. And he may not be able to hear it from you, but if somebody else puts it in his ear, then he may be able to hear it, and then he'll be able to work towards it or work around it. So I think the relationship with God is so important. And also to understand that God had made us whole. Like he made us whole. We have everything we need
Yes.
through him. And
Yes.
I think oftentimes in relationships, people look for other people
Complete
to
them.
complete them.
Yes.
Right. And one thing, I'm actually in the process of writing a book. And then one of the sections I say, if you give the person the power to complete you, also give them the power to break you or take pieces away from you every single time they decide to leave.
Mhm.
Right. And I think that's something that people don't really understand. And so if you don't know who you are or what you want when you hop into something, you kind of conform to the ways of your partner. And then when they leave, they take bits and pieces with them.
Oh my
And
God.
then now you feel incomplete again because who you are and your identity was never truly your own.
Well, I love that. I feel like that was a big problem in my marriage, right? I was with my ex-husband for 15 years, married for over 11. And one of the things I did is that, in the beginning, I started out strong. I think this is one reason why he married me, because he's like, oh, she's bad. But then as I wanted to just try to fix the marriage and fix him and I began to conform to something that I didn't even know who I was, right? And
Right.
so being broken in the relationship, when the relationship was finally fell apart, I had to go and discover who I was again. Like, I didn't
Absolutely.
smile, I didn't laugh. Here I am, beginning before I met him, bubbly person, throwing parties, and you know what I'm saying? Like, I was the life of the party and loved taking pictures of myself. And then after the marriage, I never did any of that stuff anymore. So I had to rediscover that when I
Who you
got
are. Yeah.
out of the marriage. So it's so important that you don't lose your identity in a relationship, especially if it's a toxic relationship.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
if if you think about a project, right? If you think about a project, anytime you work on something and it's complete, you go to the next thing.
Hmm.
You go to the next thing. So when it comes to thinking about being in a relationship with people that you have to fix, and this is for everybody that's listening, you think about being in a relationship with somebody you have to fix, just know it's going to fail.
Mm.
Just know it's just going to fail. if you go into it thinking, okay, they need to change this, they need to change this, or I need to fix this, I need to make them better at that. Now, mind you, God has sent women, a woman to be a man's helper, absolutely,
Yes, yes,
to
yes.
to help him see his vision, to push his vision, to help, you know what I'm saying, poke holes in his vision to make sure that he's going in the right direction. A little bit of encouragement, motivation. But if you're going into it solely with the purpose of fixing them in any kind of way, form, or fashion, then you can expect, of course, failure.
Oh God, if I had that in my spirit some years ago, there would have been some jokers I would have never even tried to play with. Okay, because I think that's the problem with strong women. We think we have superpowers,
Absolutely.
and we think we are Marvel and DC characters, and we can get in here and get our toolbox and fix a man, and he gonna start marching to our tune. It never works like that, right? It never.
Yeah, you'll find yourself fixing him so he can be ready for somebody else.
Yes, yes. Oh my God. Oh Jesus. That is just how it is these days. It's so true. I want to talk about too, um, we talked about I want to talk a little bit about toxic relationships because I think
Mm,
that toxic relationships can be hard to identify, especially if you are an unhealed person or if you're used to trauma. And I've had so many people, including myself, I'm never, always gonna put myself in the picture first, where there were times that I just did not want to let go or I was scared to let go, right? What do you counsel people when they're at that position?
Well, first, like on a counseling perspective, because mind you, I am in school right now for marriage, family, and sex therapy. I'm
Hmm.
9 months away from graduating, right?
Right.
And so we use this word called limbic resonance, and
Hmm.
it's pretty much when your body, your autonomic nervous system is used to chaos, is used to dysfunction.
Ah.
So you gravitate towards it. And anytime you step into something healthy, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel comfortable because your body isn't used to it. You haven't learned how to operate
Mhm.
in that environment, right? So we create these attachments that first stemmed when we were kids, right? So
Mhm.
based off the relationships that we have with our parents. So if things were very confused, if things were very dysfunctional, very chaotic as a kid, we had anxious attachments as kids and we didn't have secure attachments, then we're going to always find ourselves gravitating towards men. If I'm a man, then women that's almost like my mom. And if you're a woman, then men that are almost like your dad. Even though you may not like your dad, you may not even like your mom, but you're going to
Right.
gravitate towards it because it's the most familiar thing to you. So we
Hmm.
hold on to these attachments because we feel like we can't let them go, and they're just called trauma bonds. There's really
Yeah.
called trauma bonds, and until you learn how to release, sit back, reflect, and heal, then you're
Mhm.
going to always be attached to those trauma bonds. So you have to release, reflect, and actually heal from the things, or else you'll be locked in with it forever.
Yeah. And some people never they die with those trauma bonds, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
In the last, I would say 10 years of my life, especially after my divorce, but even when I was still married, I have found so much usefulness in therapy, right?
Absolutely.
This is a thing that's I think mental health has just come in the forefront in the last decade, maybe 5 years. I wouldn't even say decade. I would say the last 5 years because especially for people of color and minority communities, we are kind of conditioned to keeping family secrets, to holding
Absolutely.
on to trauma bonds, to never telling, anything that broke us, to always staying strong. I saw something from Taraji P. Henson, who I love, who's really a mental health advocate, and she said, the black strong woman is a trap. It's a trap, she said, because here we are putting ourselves in a trick bag, right? We're black and strong, we can overcome everything, but really we're breaking down. I'm paraphrasing, but
Absolutely.
I agree with that. I think it's the same thing for the black male, right? To be strong and never to show fear or shed tears or show too much love, for some black men, right? Is a trick bag. How do you help people overcome this you don't need therapy trap? Just
Well,
pray. Just pray.
yeah, right. So, kind of similar to what you just said. Just realizing that as kids, we were taught to not cry, to not do this, to keep family secrets. Don't tell nobody your stuff. Don't put white folks in your business. Um,
Yes,
and
yes.
a lot of times when you think about therapy, especially before, because it's like 4 to 5% of therapists are black, right? So
Mhm.
even when you think about the books that I read and the literature that I've learned and studied from, they are created from white people from a white
Yeah,
perspective.
yeah.
So you hear about. therapy and you just have this negative connotation because you already don't want to tell people your business. You
Hmm.
already have this thing where you don't really trust too many people.
Yeah.
So why would I sit on this couch and tell the most randomest person, somebody that doesn't even know me, haven't been in my experiences, haven't been in my shoes, what I've been going through? And what happens if I give them information, they don't have anything to give back to me? So it's always that fear, right? So I tell people to give it a try. I tell people that not only is therapy good for your past, but it's also good for your future. It's almost like preventative
Hmm.
maintenance. I want to help you identify what was that thing in your family that broke you. What was that thing? What was those toxic bonds in your family that broke you? Like the communication styles. What was that like in your family? The drug abuse. What was that like in your family? Like the
Hmm.
dysfunction. What was that like in your family? The chaos. What was that like in your family? How has that led you to different relationships, and how has that led you to feel and think about yourself? So when I get to asking people questions and they start saying, I never even thought about that. I'm like, that's exactly what therapy is. It's not
Hmm.
me telling you exactly what to do. No, it's me
Yeah.
asking you questions to unlock certain things within you so we can start doing the work. And
Yeah.
once we start doing the work, then we can help you get out of that space into the next space that you need to be in to work on your future.
Yeah, I love it. I am so addicted, like hooked on therapy movies and therapy shows. I love them, like Goodwill Hunting, those shows like that. Like just woo me to my socks, you know.
That's good.
But that brings me to my next point because I know that people like myself, and it's not a gender thing, right? It's more of a person thing or nature thing. I'm an empath, right? By nature, I am a giver by nature. You know, I love to love, and I find myself sometimes in a world of takers. In a world of people who are manipulators and selfish and don't even know what love is. Their definition of love is skewed, right? And
Right.
so a lot of times, not just myself, but even when I speak to my girlfriends, they're like, Charlie, I just, I'm exhausted because, I'm pouring out and not getting back. How do you help people like that?
Well, I tell people, I use a big word. I write on a piece of paper: reciprocation.
Mm.
Right, reciprocation.
I
Because
have
I'm the
another
same.
word for you too that I love.
Okay, okay, but
Yeah.
no, go ahead and tell me real quick.
Boundaries.
Oh, absolutely. So reciprocation and boundaries, I think that'd be perfect. So at the end of the day, this how I feel about both. Because I'm a huge giver. I'm poor and I
Me
pour
too.
and I
Me
pour
too.
and I
Me
pour
too.
and I pour, and then you
Yes.
realize I'm empty and nothing is being poured back into me. Nobody is pouring back into me. So
Yes.
once I realized that, right, before I even put up boundaries, you have to say, you know what? I can only deal with people in close proximity that are able to reciprocate. I
Mm.
can only if I'm getting a prophetic word and God is putting something on my heart to give you, then in the
Hmm.
process of me going through something, if I'm struggling, then are you gonna be able to give me something? Are you gonna be able to say a prayer for me? Are you gonna be able to give me the words that may push me to
Yes.
where I need to go? So it's all about reciprocation. And
Yes.
once you notice that I'm talking to a person that isn't able to either pray for me, pour into me, help me out
Ooh.
in any kind of way, form, or fashion, then you know the reciprocation is not there, and you already know that they are not going to be able to give you what you've been giving back to them. So that's when the boundaries are set, right?
Ah,
That
I
that's when
love
the
that.
that's
I
when the
love that.
boundaries are set.
Reciprocation, thin boundaries. I like that because we got to
Exactly.
see, give the person a chance to see what they're able to do. And not only that, I have taken this brings me to my next, it's going to bring me to my next question because I learned the power in taking the time to really know someone before giving yourself to them. Right.
Absolutely. See,
Um, yes, go ahead. What you was going to say?
yeah, seeing how they act. See, it
Yeah.
kind of reminds me of a conversation I was having with a friend. She asked me, Rex, do you feel like um, you should give people your trust and respect, or should they earn it? And I
Mm,
said, I feel like you should lean in with trust and respect with every relationship until the trust and respect is tested. Once it's
mm,
tested, then you know how to move on moving forward. So same thing with relationships. Before I know that I want to be with you, I want to see what you like during the test. I want to see I want to see how generous you may be. I want to see, are you going to try to open my door? I want to see, will you ever try to take the bill? I want to see, will you ever try
mm.
to invite me to church? I want to see where your mindset is. I want to
Yes.
see, will you ever say, you know what, Rex, I found this podcast, or I know you like reading, so I picked up this book. I want to see where your heart is before
Hmm.
I even take those steps. Because if before I tell you what I need from you, I want to see what you're already willing to give. I want to see what you're already willing to do, right? If you're willing to initiate, if you're willing to lead, if you're willing to Just be there for me any kind of way, form, or fashion, just like a friend. I want to
Right.
see those things first. So that's what I would say.
I love that. I love that. Not only that, I find too, not that I need to know at least a little bit about the person's background, their history, have they healed from like something that I may not even know about, you know? I'm always skeptical of those people that are unwilling or hesitant to tell me about where they've been in life.
Yeah.
You know, like what have you been doing out here in these streets for 40 years? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
Right.
because it says something. You know, sometimes it means that they haven't dealt with their trauma, and other times it means that they're not willing to put in the work because they think they're already okay. I think we live in a world where people are lovers of themselves. We're seeing it right already. And nobody and people, a lot of people are not willing to put in the work that it takes to really do some self actualization, right? And some, you know, it's work to get yourself to the point where you're a healed person.
Oh,
um,
absolutely.
yeah, and I want to talk about that, the healing journey, and how important you think it is. Because I've had this conversation with a friend, and his point of view was that because one time he asked me a question. He said, "So do you think you're healed?" And I said, "I think we're all on a journey where we're constantly healing of something. So I'm constantly learning to reheal or to refocus or to, get on this path of wholeness, right? And the whole, not saying that I'm not a whole person, but a
Right.
path of wholeness." And so he said, "No, that's wrong because you should already be healed." What do you feel about that?
So I like you. I don't feel like you'll ever 100% be healed from anything.
Right.
I feel like it's a lifelong journey to
Yeah.
wholeness, like you said. And I asked one of my guys that same exact question, and he said, "Yeah, bro, I'm healed." I said, "How you know?" He said, "Well,
Hmm.
I'm focused, man. I'm working on my business. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I don't have issues anymore." And I said, "So what was the thing that broke you?" He was like, "Well, my ex, she cheated on me, made me feel some type of way, really made me not really trust women." I said, "So how do you feel about the person you're currently talking to now?" It was, "Oh no, bro, I don't. Yeah, I'm not gonna take it there with her. I'm not gonna give her my all." And I was like, "There you see." I was like, "So healing isn't really focusing on your future; it's focusing on your past, so you can get to your future."
Yeah.
So I created this thing called the healing cycle, my own personal healing
I
cycle.
love it. Yes, tell me
So,
about it,
so
please.
the healing cycle starts with identifying the thing that broke you, traumatized you, hurt you, whatever it was, identifying it.
Mhm.
Then identifying how that thing made you feel, right? And even with my clients, I use a thing called an emotional wheel because a lot of us don't have the emotional vocabulary to talk about or identify the feeling. We know
Ooh.
we feel it, but we don't have a name for it. So, I secondly, you identify how it made you feel, right? How it made you view yourself, and then third, you identify how it's made you act towards other people. So, for instance, his girl cheated on him, so when it comes to other people, he doesn't let them get close.
Ah.
Right. So how's it make you act towards other people? Then you work towards like forgiving that thing, right? Now
Mm.
forgiveness is a long process in
Oh my
itself, but
God.
right.
Yes.
But you work towards forgiving that thing, and then I have it. The next step is you work towards forgiving yourself, not only for staying in it, but for reacting the way you acted, and then also forgiving yourself for the way you acted outside of that relationship with that person with everybody else. Then you get to the point where you end up at acceptance, accepting the fact that you have done every single thing that you could possibly do for the relationship, for yourself, and finding peace with that. It's like a new mantra. I have done
Hmm.
everything that I could do, and I'm at peace with that.
That's good.
So, and it's like a never ending process. And also throughout the healing process, I have prayer in it. Like you have to pray your way through it because
Yes.
God is going to give you the power and
Yes.
authority and the control over your situation. So that is my cycle that I
I love
created.
that. Oh my God, that's so powerful. I love that. I think that that's something that we all need, right? That healing cycle. I love it. I'm so glad I asked you that question because it was on my mind, like really heavy. I'm gonna get a little personal now. So,
Okay.
what has been the greatest epiphany you've learned about a relationship? Like it was like a wow moment.
Um, that I don't always have to be right, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't always have to be right. You won't always have the answer,
Mm-hmm.
right? And an answer isn't always needed. Sometimes the best thing to do is just listen, sit there, be present, sit in that feeling. And I think that's the biggest thing for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not the type of person that like to sit in anything too long. I'm solution focused. Solution focused. So
Yeah.
if you're crying, okay, how can we fix the tears? All
Hmm.
right, you're upset. How can I fix the anger? If
Hmm.
you're emotional, like what? How can you fix it? Like right now, I don't like sitting in it, but I realized that sitting in it sometimes is the best thing. Sitting in it and listening, and asking the right questions is sometimes the best thing. Just being present, side by side. You don't have to touch. You don't have to talk, but just knowing that they are there, knowing that you're a safe space for that person,
Hmm.
is sometimes the best thing. So actually sitting there, being present, not trying to give a solution, not trying to give the answer, but trying to listen and see what do they need from me in this present moment.
Yeah, I think that's important. I had a conversation with a friend about that too. Like, it's important, especially for women, that sometimes we don't really want you to say an answer. We just want you to listen, you know? And
I have to learn that the hard way.
yeah, and that's hard for men because I think men are, if they love you, if they care about you, they're natural fixers, right? They want to
Exactly.
fix it. But sometimes fixing it is not what the woman wants because she's already going through it in her mind. And so she just needs to vent and she just needs you to be present in the moment. And I think that's important. I love that. I love that.
Absolutely.
I love that. I feel like we live in a world of fake relationships, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When people have relationships for alternative or, other motives, right? How do you identify? I think that everything comes to light with time, but how do you quickly identify those relationships that are not genuine?
Well, honestly, if we're talking about a counseling setting or a coaching setting, I can see it by the closeness. I can see it by the eye
Mhm,
contact. I can see it by the conversation.
mhm,
I do this one thing in counseling. I call it the conflict conversation, and I got it from John Gottman. He's a relational specialist. But
mhm,
and one thing that happens is I'll tell the couple, I'll say, hey, so for the next 10 minutes, I want you to have a conversation over something that brings conflict in your relationship, right? And based off that conversation, I sit back for 10 minutes, watch them, let them do their thing. Based off that, I can tell if it's real or fake, right?
mhm.
Based off the way they communicate, based off the closeness, based off if somebody breaks down and the other person, how the other person responds, based on the eye
Yes.
contact, everything about that is how I can identify it. So if you want to take a step outside the counseling context or coaching context, I'm just out and about and I'm just on social media. You can tell when they make things look too perfect, right?
Mhm,
When everything's too perfect, only thing you see is the best pictures. You see the best videos, you see the best TikToks, and then on the back end, you hear about a whole bunch of other stuff. So I'll give you a perfect
yes.
example. There was a couple that I went to college with. They looked amazing together, right? Their vibe fit each other. Everything just looked great. And then you come to find out that they had a very abusive relationship. There was cheating on both ends in a relationship. They didn't communicate well in a relationship. They blocked each other all the time. But anytime they posted, they never posted about the good stuff. I mean, about the bad stuff. It's only the good.
Mhm,
So I see those as being fake happy, fake relationships, things that looks good to the public because they get a lot of likes, they get a lot of love, they get a lot of attention. But
mhm.
on the back end, they're miserable and they're just sad.
I know. You know what? I love the fact that you mentioned that because I think that we're like so caught up in the pretty people together, or the rich people together, or the popping couple together, or the Diddy Miami couple, the Diddy and Young Miami couple. But
Yeah,
you know, we often, and I'm not saying that the Young Miami don't have true love, but what I'm saying is that we have gotten so fascinated with that we're not
yep,
even willing to see or be transparent about relationships. Period. Right? What might happen behind the scenes, of any relationship, and I think that's important. I've come to the point in my life where I'm, even some of the things that I post, try to always post the nice pictures. Of course, that's what Instagram taught us, right? The smiling faces, the good dresses, the makeup, da 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 da. But I'm also cognizant that I post the times when I didn't feel like I had self worth, right? When I was
absolutely.
the bad joker dudes, when I had low self esteem, or when I just made relationship error, dating error after error after error, or when I was just so like just wanting to settle for anything. A lot of us are settling for less because we just get impatient and lonely, and I think that's important that we are
It
transparent.
it's very important because people need to see it. People need to know everything's not okay all the time. People need to know you're not happy 100% of the time. People need to know that you do mess up in relationships. People need to know that not everything works out. People need to know that sometimes people in your life to give you a blessing, sometimes people in life to be a lesson. Like,
Hmm.
people need to know those things, but if you only show what's pretty, only show what's perfect, then that's what people are striving for. And then also
Yeah.
that's going to make a lot of relationships fail simply because they may have the perfect person in front of them that may be average. They may look average, right? But and they don't want to fully pull the trigger on that person because they don't see them as being the prettiest or
Hmm.
being the handsomest or the finest. They may miss out on something because they're shooting for the preference, right? So, and I think that's a major, major issue with this world because everything does look pretty. Everybody, the filters, they got the bodies, people get
Everything.
their
Yes.
teeth are it's just everything is being filtered,
Yes.
everything is being done, nothing is real, everything seems to be fake. And even when you look behind the scenes of all the Diddy's and the Miami's, she almost broke up with him because he cut her allowance lower. So it's like that's not love.
Well, that's what they
That's
say, allegedly, at least, right?
exactly. So you never really know
You never
what's
know.
you never really know what's happening. So um yeah, social media and everything is just really killing a lot.
Yes, yes. I often see the post like, let social media go down for a year, and let's see what happens to a lot of these relationships, people, and things like that. I think that social media is great in so many ways, right? We can use it to communicate our messages, but it's also very like, destructive.
It's very destructive. And I'll say this. I don't feel like we were supposed to ever have as much access to people as we do.
Hmm.
And I say that if you think about back in the day, right before phones, well, you had to go walk miles for your partner, and then when you got or you sent letters for your partner, and that was the main person you was focused on because you didn't have access to so many people. Right now, let's fast forward. We have Twitter, you have TikTok, you have all the dating apps, you have Snapchat, you have everything you need, right? So if you're in a relationship and you're not fully committed, right? And you're scrolling, you're going to see somebody that's attractive and you
Yeah.
may give that person attention. And this person may be on the other side of the world. But because they're fresh, because they're a new face, because they have nice pictures, because they have a nice shape, because they have really nice smile, you're like, you know what, that
Mhm.
may be something I need to go for. So we're willing to jeopardize our relationship just to see what's out there. Let's see what the grass is like on the other side.
Yeah.
And and us having so much access to these people on a day-to-day basis, it is very destructive. So like you said, if you were to shut social media down for a year, oh, there will be a lot of love. There will be a lot of love because you'll be forced to have conversations. You'll be
Yeah.
forced to be in person. You'll be forced to really get to know a person and go out and to sit at the bar or to go to church,
Yeah.
wherever, and just meet people the real way, in the most genuine way, versus doing everything behind the screen, doing everything behind the picture and behind things like that. So yeah, we need that.
Yeah, we do. I want to just close with asking you the sex question, right? As
Okay.
Christians, I know the church teaches no sex before marriage, right? But there are different schools of thought. I have, some of my friends that are sisters who say, you can have sex as long as it's true love, right? That can get questionable, right? Because
Right.
you know your intentions, but you don't know anybody else's intention, right?
Right.
And then there's also the school of thought that there should be a time period if you choose to have sex, right? I mean, Steve Harvey did the whole 90-day rule, but you'll have men out here and say, forget that rule, we grown. You know what I'm saying? Like just whenever we feel it. What are your thoughts about that beyond the biblical sense of no sex before marriage?
All right, you take all the biblical aspects out of it. This is how I feel about it. Um, a man will play a role for as long as he needs to play it until he gets what he wants.
Mm,
He will play a role. We will play a role as long as we need to play it until we get what we want. Once
mhm.
we get what we want, once you give us what we want, then we're on. We can be on to the next, right? So, I feel if you really want a true commitment, you really see this person as being something of value, something that it may be a potential husband or just maybe a potential wife. You'll wait, right? You'll wait, or you'll tighten up and not be having everything just being strung along or feeling strung along for so long. And I'll give it a
Right.
perfect example. My granny, um, my granny was dating my granddaddy, and they were kind of staying with each other back and forth, and of course they were sexually active, but she told him, we're done having sex until you marry me.
Right.
Tightened up quick, married her quick, made a
Yeah.
decision within weeks, literally within weeks. So course, it is
But you know
cool.
what? That was a different generation too. Our generation would be like, "What? This, you saw that internet shorty that would just DM me? Bye, peace."
And but exactly, but it's like, okay, cool. Are you willing to wait for what's right, or are you willing to just keep going on for what's wrong? And
Ah,
that's the thing. If a person is telling you, all right, if you don't want to have sex because I do want to try this out before I buy it, if you don't do that, then I'm out. Okay, cool. If you truly want a commitment, you want somebody that's committed to you, somebody that's going to be loyal to you, somebody that's
mhm.
going to have the self control and discipline to stay within a relationship and to stay committed, even when things may not be going the best way,
Yeah,
then
yeah,
you'll deal with a person that can wait. Now, I would say you said Steve Harvey had a 90-day rule,
yes.
which is dope. Not in the 90 days of actively dating,
Mhm.
of going out, of seeing each other, being intentional, being exclusive. Because there's a difference between going 90 days and I'm still messing around with other
Yes,
women.
it is a difference. Yes.
There's a difference. So if we're dating and we're boyfriend and girlfriend now, and I have intentions, I have plans for the future, right?
Mm.
I'm very purposeful and I'll tell you these plans that I have. Then I think it'd be a great time for then. But I think a lot of times people don't like to wait. I think a lot of times people, or rather their flesh lead and not
Yeah.
their mind. And that leads them in negative situations. And then also, it makes them numb to the act of sex to the
Yes.
point where sex actually means nothing anymore. It's really just a body. It's a body. And once it gets to the point where it's just a body or it's just sex, then you become desensitized to it. So now the person that
Mhm.
you actually want to be with, that may want to be with you, if you get to talking about your history, that's gonna be a thing in your mind. You're like, you know what, you done it way too many times, or you have way too many experiences for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
then again, then on the other side of that, you have those people that prefer you to have a lot of experience. They don't
That's
want to
true.
deal with somebody that that doesn't
Has
have any
no
experience at all.
experience.
Yeah, they don't want to have to train somebody. They don't want to have to teach somebody. They want to be able to get it going whenever and however they feel
Yes.
like it. So I'd say if you're in the process, if you want to be a husband, you want to be a wife, then you'll wait. You'll wait. You'll take your time to really find out if this is your person, because at the end of the day, you have a lifetime of learning each other, have a
Yeah.
lifetime of pleasure. There's so many different things to do. But if you are a type of person who you don't want to be married, you're not looking for anything committed, then by all means, do as you do as you please. Just take care of
Yeah.
yourself and be safe.
Yes. Yes. I have had. I think that yeah, there's a lot of schools of thought out there, right? Because I know people that slept together and they got married and they're still together, right? So it's a lot of schools of thought, and you're right. I would say that if you're serious and you're older, you may want to wait, at least get to know something about the person, right?
Get
Before
to
you,
know them. Absolutely.
yeah, jumping too fast can be destructive. Take it from me, right? For your own self, for your own, and I am always worried about desensitizing sex and the way that it's looked at the body, especially when a woman's body. Because I always say this, we have women now that are trying to take on the roles of men, right? But one thing I say is women, the way that even our bodies are made up, like we receive, right?
Yeah.
Men give. So they can
Yeah.
sleep with a whole bunch of different women. They're giving, right? Everything that when we decide we're gonna sleep with a whole bunch of different people, we're taking in everything that they're giving us. And I've seen it drag on a woman's mental health
Yeah.
and body and everything and start to deteriorate everything about her.
Absolutely.
So I do think it's different. I know people will disagree with me and be like, "Oh no, I can do it." Like a man. Okay, sis, I'm not arguing with you. But
You
I'm
shouldn't
just
want
saying
to.
yes, yes. But I really feel like it is a difference between men and women, and God made us differently, when it comes to what we can emotionally handle and tolerate, and spiritually. Even if
Absolutely.
you think about the emotional part, you have to think that spiritually it starts to weigh down on you, right?
It definitely does. And I'll say this, and this is being honest and transparent. I went through a season of my life where um I just went buck wild, right?
Yes,
Just
yes.
went
We all
buck
had
wild,
those seasons.
right? And during that season, outside looking in, it looked like I was having a time of my life. But that was the darkest place I've ever been in my life.
Sure.
That was, that was getting out of bed late, showing up work late. But once I actually show up, my face is different. Like I'm excited, I'm ecstatic. You think nothing is wrong, but once I get by myself, I'm lonely, I'm depressed. I feel like crying, but I don't really want to allow myself to cry. I really want to talk to people, but instead of talking, I'm just gonna have sex and sex my way through it. Instead of having conversations, I'm just gonna cuddle and then not talk at all about it. And then people
Mhm.
start asking questions like, "Man, you sure do like to cuddle a lot. You sure do like to be held a lot. Like you don't really talk much about what's really going on with you." Um, and in that time in my life, I can only express myself through sex and not through words.
Mm.
And once
That's
you get to
good.
that, yeah, so like you don't want to get desensitized. You don't want to just continue to allow everything in you, and also to put yourself into everything because you do pull and take whatever they have in them. If there's a lot of negative energy, you will have that negative energy. You may not be understanding why you feel so down. You may not understand why you're having negative thoughts or why your body's feeling off, and it's because that person passed you a whole bunch of stuff that you didn't need. Right?
Yeah.
So
I told my friend he was sleeping with this girl who's always angry. I was like, look at you. She done passed on her anger to you. Now you mad too. You know that energy is real. You know what I'm saying?
100%. You have to protect your energy at all
Yes.
costs. So I'm all for having a good time. I'm all for telling people to enjoy themselves, but to be mindful of the people that they're engaging with, to be mindful of the people that they're talking to, and just being active with because you never know who that person's with. And then so the honesty and transparency aspect definitely needs to be there. And then of course, getting tested and making sure everything is healthy and good
Yes.
on your end as well because that's
Yes.
so important.
Yes. I love this interview. I have one last question. And I guess this is a shout out to single women like me, right?
Right.
You who feel like especially people of color, I would say. I think this is a myth, but I'll say it because it's a big myth that's out there that it's hard to find men of color, men of minority men that want to get married and be serious and, date successful women of color. What do you feel?
Okay. No, absolutely. Absolutely. There are men out there, black men that want to date black women, successful black women that create families with black women,
Hmm.
that want to provide for black women, that want to lead
Yes.
black women. But to speak to those black women, just know that they are there. Be patient. Don't try to be extra aggressive because I think that's one thing that turns a lot of men off sometimes is just
Hmm.
the extra aggressiveness, the extra independence. If you're telling me that you don't need me for anything, then me as a provider, I'm like, "Ah, well, I'm not.
Hmm.
What am I going to do in this
And
situation? If
sometimes you don't even have to say it. Sometimes your aura gives it off. Like I was dating a guy and he was like, well, Chalet, you was always telling me what you wouldn't do. And I'm like, what? And in my heart, I know I would do anything for somebody I love, but I was given the aura of, like I got it all together. I don't need you. Right. And so he felt that aura that I was
yeah,
giving out. And so I think that's also a good point. What about women who say, okay, we're gonna date outside of our race, because we're tired of waiting for black men.
well, listen, if that's your preference, if that's what you want to do,
Yeah.
then I think people are in that space where they are tired of waiting, right? Because there are a lot of men that don't want to be married. There are a lot of men that haven't healed. There are a lot of men that just
Mhm.
want to have sex and mess around and string you along and manipulate you. And women are tired of that, and you have every single right to be tired of that because outside of the black culture, people are getting married fast. people are
Yes.
getting people are making decisions very fast,
Yes. Yeah. Especially
and,
after COVID, people weren't playing.
and they weren't playing
They
at all.
realized
So
that the people that they were with weren't the one. They got divorced, got remarried quick, or they just like, look, I don't want to die alone. I need to get with the person who's meant to be for me. People not
exact
playing.
exactly, and these people are initiating. So, and I'll give you a perfect example. One of my frat brothers just recently got married, right? So at his wedding, there was pretty much 98% black people, and there was. I introduced myself. I talked to the one white guy. And the white guy, he was like, "Yeah, I'm married to one of the ladies here, and she's black." I said, "Okay, cool. How'd that go?" He was like, "Well, it's pretty cool." He was like, "My family's pretty excited. Her family thought that we got married too fast." I said, "Well, how long did you date?" He was like, "Well, we dated for about 7 months,
I
seven, eight
love it.
months."
I
And
love
then
it.
we got married. And I said, listen, they say that because in our culture, people date forever.
Yes, too
People
long.
people date for years and years and years, and they're okay and they're comfortable being that. And I was like, but outside of our culture, people make decisions. When you figure out like I
Yes.
like you, I love you, I want to spend the rest of my life with you, they're ready to pull the trigger. And that's
Yes.
just something that we don't have. So if if you're a black woman and you've been wanting to date a black man or marry a black man, and this black man has been doing you wrong, doing you dirty, dragging you through the mud, then you have every right to date whoever and to marry whoever is wanting to marry you. Absolutely. So I have nothing to say.
Yeah, I think love is love. So, like I have
Absolutely.
nothing to say about people dating outside the culture. I know there's schools of thought. Of course, my preference is to be with a black man. We have the same
Absolutely.
struggles. I love black men. I think black men are wonderful. And as a black woman, I want to take my black man to the next level because we can build legacy together, right?
Absolutely.
But you know what I'm saying? If there's a man who comes along and he happens to be purple and he's good to me and he loves the Lord, I'll marry him too.
And no, absolutely. And then the last thing I would say, you just got to think about your legacy. You got to think about, especially if you want kids.
Hmm.
Right. What traditions do you want? Like, do you want to be with somebody that you have to teach your culture? Do you want to be with somebody that feels uncomfortable around your people? Do you
Yeah.
want to be with a person that doesn't connect with your people because their lifestyle and their culture doesn't
Mhm.
connect with or resonate with what you got going on? So there's pros and cons to stepping outside of your race.
Of
But
course.
when you are with a black person, like you have somebody that understands, you have a person that you don't have to
Yeah.
beat around the bush with because they get it.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you know, you know.
Yes. Yes. And all skin ain't kin, but for the most part, right? Yes. I
Exactly.
love that. I love that. Well, I want to thank you for being on the show today. You gave us some jewels. How can people find you if they want to sign up for your coaching? Tell them how do they, reach out to you.
All right, guys. So once again, I am Rex Howard Jr., your relationship coach. Um, and you can find me on Instagram at I am Rex Howard Jr. You can find me on Facebook at Rex Howard Jr. You can even find me on TikTok at Rex Howard Jr. So pretty much all my platforms can pull it by following me at Rex Howard Jr. If you're interested in coaching, counseling, um, or just taking your relationships to the next level, taking your personal development to the next level, you can
Mhm.
find those on my Instagram page. If you want personal one-on-one or group coaching or couples therapy, then you can also contact me through my Instagram page or DM on Instagram or Facebook, and we'll set something up. We'll set up a 15-minute free consultation. We'll have a discussion about what you want to do, where you want to go, where you currently are, and we'll talk about the steps that it'll take to get to the next level, and we'll go from there.
I love it. Listen, don't let the age fool you. This brother has wisdom beyond wisdom. That healing cycle was whoa. That was enough for me. So blessings to you. Thank you guys for tuning in today. We will be back with you next month. I hope you enjoy your holiday, your Thanksgiving. Remember that to have an attitude of gratitude, not just on Thanksgiving, but every day. All right.
Absolutely.
Blessings. Bye bye.
Best.